I'm Charles Randolph, and welcome to Speak Online. I got something really neat tonight. Dan Bongino is leaving the mic and returning to the FBI. I was curious about this man. I looked into him a bit, and I found a few interesting things, particularly given his educational background. So, we'll review that, and I believe we can then learn a bit from his style and how influencers build bonds with their audience. So, let's talk about parasocial bonds, and then we'll take a look at a clip from him, and we'll see how this is applied. And by the way, thank you everybody from TikTok for the support. Same with YouTube and Rumble. You can follow us on any of those platforms. Also, check us out on Spotify for a podcast that will turn up as quickly as I can get them out. So, let's take a look, and everybody feel free to join us in the chat. I think I got it set up now so that you can join and see your chats live go up. All right, good times. So, here we go. Let's take a look at what a parasocial bond is before we talk about it. This is a very basic explanation, but it gets the point across. Now, so a parasocial relationship, what that is simply a relationship that's built between an individual and someone in the media. Now, in the past, these were very much separated, but as technology has advanced, for example, like with Twitch, TikTok, YouTube, all these different things, they have incorporated features such as a live chat, games, things that encourage engagement with the quote-unquote influencer or media figure. And now, what does this do? What this does is it builds a quote-unquote parasocial bond where you feel a relationship, a personal connection with the individual you're listening to, learning from, what have you. You know, you can think a bit about it like a relationship with a teacher or an educator, okay? You know, there is that type of professional distance where you won't get on like a personal level, but still there's a little bit of a connection. You might feel that you can confide in them a bit, and so on and so forth. And that is a very interesting thing. And people have become more aware of it and more likely to employ certain tactics that then many of the times some people use to take advantage of. And again, one of the purposes of this podcast is to teach people media literacy. And although this is a little bit separate from it, I do consider it very much attached to the topic, because the more that you're aware of these tactics used, you can ask yourself, does this individual actually care? You know, is it just an act? Is it just a show? What are they doing in order to get engagement from me? And I think if people are empowered to know these things, that when it comes to getting the information that is disseminated from these people, it can make you question, why are they acting this way? Why are they portraying this message in such a exciting fashion or such a shocking fashion, right? What do they want? What are they going to get from this? Well, they're going to get some money from it, for one. They're going to get engagement, because the more that you stick around, the more that ads can be placed in it. And that's one of the things that's driving this. Rather than education and knowledge, it's making that money, right? All right. So, everybody checking us out on TikTok, thank you for being here. Feel free to join the chat. I very much would like to proliferate and create a space for, good conversation. I think it's really important. So, moving forward, and we'll get a little bit more deeper into the parasocial bond here in a bit, but let's keep it going a little bit. So, I got to do this first. Dan Bongino, a little bit about this man. So, I can pull this up so you can actually see it, not just take my word for it. Dan Bongino background. So you might be expecting me to knock on this guy. I'm not, actually. He has a very interesting record. He's got at least 11 years with experience with the FBI. But when I was looking into this man, I found something very interesting. He is very highly educated. And the reason why I looked this up, everybody, is because my education is in communication, which is very much interdisciplinary, including psychology, cognitive linguistics, media, particularly mass media, the effects that it has on the public. And I seen him incorporating certain tactics, and I'm like, this guy doesn't seem like an idiot, and he's employing some of these things. I might not agree with him on a lot of stuff, but he seems like a very interesting fellow, and that's what led me to look up into his education. And he has a bachelor's in psychology, and I believe he has a master's in it as well. Yes, he's got it from the City University of New York. So, an interesting man, very interesting man. I would love to have a conversation with him to know about where he got his political views. But I just want you to know that this isn't a knock on who he is as an individual. This is more about how influencers use certain tactics. You might hear me talk a little bit of trash on some of the stuff, but it's not a knock on him personally. This is more about the tactics that he employs, and therefore what others do as well. Okay, getting to it. Mr. Dan Bongino. Oh, and if you're asking yourself, Charles, why are you wearing a muscle shirt inside? Like, isn't that kind of like a douchebag thing to do? Well, it's because I want to have a little bit of fun, and I want to portray some of his behaviors, because I think it will be a good time. I like mimicking a little bit. It'll be fun. At least I think it will. Hopefully you enjoy it.
Studio again today. He will be taking over 10 a.m. on Monday with a huge show. His first guest, Tucker Carlson. He's got another, basically not another, but a couple. He's got a really sick lineup, if I can use that word, next week. And I don't mean sick like ill. I mean, you are going to be impressed. So 10 a.m. right here on the Rumble channel. And Haley and Avita blew it up yesterday. Live search app had him as the top 50 overall and number 14 in news yesterday. So you guys are great. We really appreciate it. Thanks for everything.
Okay, so just one thing in general. Notice the breaking news. Have you ever noticed that every piece of news is always the breaking news? It's absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. Also, another note, look at the imagery. American flags everywhere, from t-shirt. Here, we got sports, everything like that. That goes into a bigger topic, but it's very important. Very important. This is something very much adopted by the Republican Party. If Democrats want to come back, and this is just general discussion, what they need to do is readopt the patriotic model, because the mass media has separated them from that, and they got to take it back.
All right, let's get to the news. I thought government shutdowns were terrible. That's what we were told by the Democrats. What did they tell us, folks? If government, quote, shuts down, which it really doesn't shut down, if it shuts down for 5...
And thank you, everybody, for joining. Everybody on TikTok, if you wouldn't mind, please liking, sharing, and subscribing. I would greatly appreciate it. I see your point by New Old School, who just said, but the Democrats don't like the U.S. We can talk about that in another topic. Just not right now. But we can do that once we get through this.
Minutes. Anyone know what's going to happen? Grandma's definitely...
That definitely opens up a good conversation that I think that we could have that would be constructive, but it's a long one.
Dead. Grandma's going to die, and she's not going to be 106 either. She could be 60, but without government, they're definitely dead. Puppies, kittens as well, maybe your goldfish. They're all dead. Everyone's going to die. People are going to be...
So here's a big one. Notice how this man is behind a desk. Okay? He's behind a desk. Oddly, he doesn't wear a suit. But this image, when we think of the news, the first image that comes to mind is either a man or a woman behind a desk. The additions that he has here are patriotic symbols. He does do something very interesting. He wears a t-shirt. That, in my opinion, is used as a method to make him feel, or not him feel, but others feel connected to him from a larger audience. In other words, his audience, his target audience, is going to be like the working man. There's tactics to all of this. I don't think everybody knows this, but it's a tactic.
Pushed off cliffs into meat grinders, wood chippers, and everything else. If government...
I got a good example, and then I'll let this go for a minute. I know I'm talking a lot. But everybody's seen how Zelensky wore a, like, basically just common wear, not a suit, to the White House. That is something that has been used by other leaders during times of war. The reason being is it develops more of a personal connection with the troops. It shows that you're not separate from them, that you're with them. It's strategy.
Shuts down, which it doesn't really shut down. It is the apocalypse. It is the instant apocalypse. Nothing will happen and life will come to a halt, which is weird because government shut down before and none of that stuff has actually happened. But the Democrats have told us, you shut down government, it is the time will stop. So here is prominent Republican conservative senator. He tells me this guy has now officially changed parties. I didn't get the news flash, did you?
Okay. So notice how he says, I didn't get the news flash. Did you? These open-ended rhetorical questions, that's a great way to get people involved. A great way to get people involved. Also, noticing how he's always looking directly at the camera, or at least as much as possible. They have a teleprompter, most likely that he's reading off, directly in front of him. I've seen a picture of their stage. It's interesting, but it's so that he's always looking directly at the audience. Notice how his body is forward rather than back and relaxed. It's engaging, right? It's engaging. Very pointed. Here, very pointed.
Prominent conservative Palestinian, too, which I was unaware of. Right, Guy? Chuck Schumer? Yeah, Palestinian as well. I did not know this. They have this on here. But here is prominent. This guy's a House Freedom Caucus guy, kind of guy. He's on the Senate side. Chuck Schumer telling us how government shutdowns are now a good thing again, how we should shut government down. So I didn't know this guy converted. This is incredible. Like baptism by fire. Check this out.
Funding the government should be a bipartisan effort, but Republicans chose a partisan path.
Thing is actually happening. You see what he did there? He could just state the obvious. We're not voting for this and the government's going to shut down. He doesn't say that. Republicans have not successfully acquired enough of the spreadsheet type transactional vote numbers.
He's very exciting, very entertaining. You gotta love his energy.
In order to invoke the because he doesn't want to say the obvious. We're shutting the government down. I thought we weren't shutting. I thought the government shutdown was terrible. People are all going to. You went through the whole litany of horribles. You ever hear the term parade of horribles? Everyone's going to die if the government shuts down. So now the Democrats who told us we need government. You need government in every aspect of your life. Every aspect of your life. There's nothing. You can't hit a baseball without government. Now all of a sudden the Democrats are the shut the government down party. Once you learn to dissect political euphemisms, you can never go back. How he handled that is why I played that clip. Notice the language he uses. He doesn't want to state the obvious. So what's the solution to that? Folks, the solution to that is for you all to get out the message out there that it's not the Republicans who shut this thing down, whether we agree with the spending levels or not. I don't. I've been fairly candid about that. But we didn't have the votes. We will through reconciliation. They, the Democrats, are the ones not voting to keep the government open, therefore voting to shut it down by simple logic. Here's Chuck Schumer again. Again, misdirection is how they Justin, you're except if you go back to this Office of Inspector General report from August 19, 2024, which says what? Yes, Justin, you're correct. He's like, I didn't say anything. I know.
See how he invites the other conversation from other people around him? You gotta love that. It's such a good tactic in order for people to do that. It keeps conversation going and it influences people to engage and interact with people. It's very, very important. Very important. It's an excellent skill that he's developed.
Which says there is, shockingly, fraud in Social Security. They found nearly $72 improperly paid. That doesn't say $72. It says, to tell you how much I hate that word. I'm going to fit it in. So, I lost the chat here. I want to see you guys. I got to turn off the Wi-Fi sometimes. There we go. Now you're back. Folks, there's a problem with this.
Here we go. Folks, this is a great one. Like we, you, all these interpersonal terms that are used. Folks, let me see. Folks, we got a problem. It's very serious. The world is going to end. All these Republicans, all these Democrats, they're the worst thing in the world. I don't know what we're going to do, but your parents are going to die and we better take care of it. Things are getting real. It's so funny and it's so interpersonal.
Always use the example of, say, at the parking spots or people with physical disabilities, right? Someone pulls in there who's not disabled and has no problem, and someone who comes in who may, say, be in a wheelchair or has to move with a cane doesn't get that spot. It is not cost-free. When $72 billion is stolen from taxpayers who put their money into this system anticipating a government annuity-based system, typically it's not, it's a pay-go system, but whatever, and it's stolen, that's no money for you. You have to ask yourself a very serious question right now. Why is Chuck Schumer ignoring this nonpartisan Office of Inspector General report? Because of what I told you. There are Democrats up on the Hill who just don't care about fraud because they feel like this. You ready? Tattoo this on your brain. Once you find out how much government fraud and public corruption is going on within federal government enterprises like the Social Security Administration, they're afraid you'll never trust government again. That's why they're hiding.
I really don't want to get into this.
You want to get paid and get your...
What I want to get into is a bit of this. I know, exciting, right? But it's very interesting and very valuable information. So this is an article about computers and human behavior reports out of that journal about the 1.5-sided parasocial relationship. So as discussed earlier, this, due to technology's advancements, has provided new means of engagement and interaction between media figures and those who are watching. So one thing that was developed from that is an evolutionary type of perspective that is the 1.5-sided parasocial relationship. The curious case of live streaming. I'm not going to read everything, but I'm going to hit the main points. Okay. Promise I'm going to hit the main points. Why are you doing that? Why are you jumping around? There we go. That is annoying. Okay. So one, this is a big one, and we just got done seeing this, is the reciprocal interaction that is involved between the media influencer and those who are watching. So to hit on that note, reciprocal interaction, and this is quoting document, the current understanding of PSRs, parasocial relationships, does not adequately account for the reciprocity of the relationships between viewer and live streamer. That is, traditional PSR theory does not sufficiently explain the nature of parasocial relationships that include some form of reciprocal two-way communication. A 2020 study on live streaming reported that 100% of those surveyed reported some degree of interaction between the live streamer that they regularly watch and the streamer's community, with 74% of them reporting a lot or constant interaction. This reciprocal interaction can have a significant influence on how the viewer perceives the nature of the PSR with the live streamer personality. As discussed in an interview with Penella Rutledge, director of the Media Psychology Research Center, the visceral cues provided by the up-close and personal nature of the videos help blur the line for viewers, allowing them to feel that there is a genuine bond with the host. You start to develop a one-sided relationship with that person where you feel like you really know that person. So one thing that people are willing to do online is they're often willing to disclose information because they can't be seen, right? And due to that, these like deep personal things that are disclosed, then you can see that this person at least cares. Like you can see their, oh my gosh, like an empathetic response. But is it legitimate or not? And I think one thing that we need to consider, especially right now, is how, in my opinion, people can take advantage of these empathetic connections, either monetarily or other forms behind the scenes. They act like they care and they keep that connection going. Now, another interesting one is community affiliation. So this is another technique that is used to create a community, and not necessarily like all these techniques are bad, but and they're not. But it's how they're used, It's how they're used. So for example, a very bad community would be like an incel community, right? That is a bad community. All right, community affiliation. I'm quoting from here. There is a strong sense of community affiliation fostered between the streamer and their community. Today, online communities are just a click away, and they can and do foster strong interpersonal relationships built on a shared interest. This sense of community that forms among viewers of a particular streaming personality reinforces the PSR with the streamer themselves, as well as contributes to its longevity. This sense of community affiliation is typically first fostered in the live chat that coincides with streaming. Here, the streamer and members of the community can engage and interact with each other through text, while the social bonds themselves create a sense of community, group identification, and community affiliation is further intensified through co-experiences. That is, experiencing things together. This is a very good example. This is one reason why gaming is so popular. Is because you can partake in the individual that you are watching in their accomplishment. So you can be that cheerleader for them, right? Like they just, got first prize. Hell yeah, go for it, bro. You're the best. That is one of the reasons why that gaming culture and gaming live streams has become so popular, is just that type of dopamine response, that type of feeling, how we get happy seeing that, right? It's just like going to an in-life football game, It's really, really interesting. And I think it's important that we understand why we are attracted to these things. Because if we understand why we are attracted to them, then we can also think about how they can be used against us, right? Because they are. And then ask ourselves, is this good for us? And I think that is something that isn't considered quite often. So, and again with the live chats, a really good example of this is Discord. A third-party instant messaging service that is often used. That also facilitates the reciprocal interaction, reduces that one side, but increases it as a 1.5 side. Here's another note on this. Wishful identification. Wishful identification is the idea that streamers are aspirational figures, that is, role models to the viewers in their community. That is, viewers picture the streamer as a role model and want to imitate them. Admittedly, this feature is not unique to streaming. Traditional celebrity figures are also often considered aspirational figures. Research has found the role of wishful identification to be a predictor of the strength of the parasocial relationship and viewer loyalty for live streamers specifically. In turn, wishful identification is an important predictor of viewer loyalty and whether or not viewers develop a parasocial relationship with the streamer. In other words, some parasocial relationships with streamers may be stimulated by wishful identification. So, this is a very interesting thing, thinking about how those we watch set an example for behavior. And I think that is a big thing to consider when it comes to how certain media figures, especially in the quote-unquote news sphere, speak about the other side, what and how their rhetoric can affect others. Because people will mimic behavior, whether they're aware of it or not. You will mimic it. You go into a new environment and you start acting like those around you because it makes you feel comfortable and you feel like you fit in. And it's just a common psychological thing. The emotional engagement, here's a big one. The unique element of parasocial relationships with live streamers is the level of emotional engagement that viewers report with the streamer and their associated community. Broadly speaking, emotional engagement refers to viewers' intrinsically motivated involvement and enthusiasm for participation. One of the big things that has come about recently is the gamification of interaction. This is a big one. TikTok has made a lot of money off this. It looks like a good time and it's fun, but what they have done is taken that idea of, hey, let's win something. I want my streamer to win. They'll be happy. I'll get to participate in that, right? And then this emotional engagement and investment as well. And they kind of combined it into a game. It's very effective. Very effective. I don't think it's healthy, though. One of the things that can come from that is objectification. That is something to consider a lot, because if you can purchase attention from this individual that you believe is influential, it means that you can build a cognitive association between attention and money, right? Especially with a lot of men interacting with women. It can be seen, okay, I can take this and I can apply it to real life. If I got enough money, I can buy as much attention as I want. It really promotes objectification. Presence. Presence as a psychological state in which the virtuality of experience is unnoticed. That is, it is a state where the lines between real and virtual become blurred. The fluidity between host and audience in live streaming venues creates a space that is high in presence. Although much of the literature categorizes presence as a broad concept, there are several subtypes of presence. Physical presence, in which individuals perceive virtual objects as actual physical objects. Social presence, which includes the idea that virtual beings are actual social people. And self-presence, a reality where individuals perceive virtual selves as actual self. So one thing here, when it regards a physical presence, something that I noticed on TikTok, which is from a strategy to make money point, a very good idea, but the idea of giving roses to the streamers. So for example, roses, what do we usually associate them with? Deep interpersonal connection, affection, love, care. And these are given from those who are watching. So imagine men watching giving this to women. Now, they then most likely have an expectation of certain behaviors, right? And that can lead to certain ethical questions of, is that okay? Moving forward. Motivational models. While the focus of this paper is on the changes to the foundation of parasocial relationships that should be considered when discussing PSRs in the context of live streaming, that said, one should also consider the role of motivation when it comes to engaging in live streaming in the first place. Traditional PSRs form between viewer and performer within a specific informational or entertainment context. An individual may develop a PSR with their local weatherman when they watch their forecast every morning, or their favorite actor whose new Netflix series based on their favorite video game is particularly riveting. However, in the context of live streaming, the motivations for engaging can vary wildly. Specifically in the context of live streaming on Twitch, several motivations have been discussed in literature. The motivation to be part of a social community, to release tension, learn more about a new video game release, among others. While research has found the media personalities themselves are more likely to motivate viewership than the content of the stream itself, it is noteworthy that much of the live streaming on Twitch is often centered on game content and gameplay. This suggests that some may be motivated to watch video game-centric streams to engage in gaming spaces while avoiding some of the potentially toxic cultural norms in gaming communities. Then it does get into the implications of this. That is primarily like the ethical considerations, some of the good things regarding it. One being, and I got a really good clip of this, of one individual talking about, or a individual who was watching disclosing that they lost a family member, and then the influencer giving a visceral reaction and at the least displaying concern and care. That is a argument that can be made that is pro these types of things, because people are able to express themselves, disclose, talk about things that they may that they may not feel comfortable enough to talk about with friends and family, but with a complete stranger. But what happens when you develop, because of, disclosing that information, a very tight bond that at least you perceive is very important and very deep? It opens up the doors for people to be taken advantage of. A lot. So, but we close this. Let's move to the conclusion. That's probably where he'll get a little bit more interpersonal a bit. But think about those things and take a look at some of this.
Equity holder in Rumble. I love Rumble. I am exclusively on Rumble for video. We are not on ScrewTube or anywhere else. Rumble did because it's a public company, they did
also the emotional words. That's a big
their earnings call last night. And folks, it was a ringer of a report. And I just want to thank you so much for supporting the company. As you can see from their public disclosure last night, breaking Rumble reports third quarter 2024 results. Their monthly active users, that's what MAU means, grew to 67 million, up 26% quarter over quarter. That's a whole lot of users on a platform, folks. Right. This isn't, I'm pretty sure it doesn't even count most of the election coverage. Record revenues of 25.1 million, up 39% year over year. I'm having too much fun today on the show. I had a good night. I'm pretty honored all you guys that reached out about stuff. It's been really cool. I'm still kind of on a bit of a cloud from last week. I don't know about you, but I'm just still feeling.
Another big thing, and this was mentioned, but not specifically, is disclosing your personal feelings. That is a big one. If you disclose personal things about yourself or the different experiences that you have had in life, it opens up an avenue for other people to connect on a deeper level. Okay, so if you've been through a traumatic event, someone watching has also been through that traumatic event. All of a sudden, you have a perceived common understanding, and that influences you to then disclose more information or build that bond even more. And he's very good at disclosing these little personal pieces of information about how he actually feels, different things like that. It's very good.
Like, our country's so back. We're so back, and it just feels really good, man. I'm going to show you the left just eating themselves alive next. The View, which has been probably one of the single greatest sources of material over the last few years. Watch them melt down. And keep this going. Keep this stuff going. It's absolutely great. Hey, you want to get lean? And take a product called Lean. A lot of people ask me, Dan, how'd you lose all that weight? I did. I was 238 pounds. I would show you the picture I was getting.
Let me find a different one. There was a really good one that I seen yesterday. An emotional journey.
For incredible partnership through the years. You guys have been great. Jim, that's called a...
There we go.
Pay it. Thank you. Producer Jim, of course, not paying attention as always because he's not used to this in the podcast. Producer Jim's brain does not activate until when? 11 Texas time, 12 noon our time. So we're an hour behind. We love looking, but he's already smiling. He's rocking a Bongino Army.
Joking is a whole field in its own in communication research. The use and purpose of it in group dynamics, especially work environment, whether it's good or not.
Sure. Wait, keep that up. I know I'm going out of break. I didn't know what shirt to wear this morning for my last show. And I thought, come on, this is obvious. You got to wear the Bongino Army shirt as a salute to you guys. So thank you. Today's show also brought to you by our friends at Patriot Mobile. And they stuck with us for a long time. If you're part of the Bongino Army, you should be on Patriot Mobile. We have to support companies that share our values and believe what we believe in. You can switch to Patriot Mobile.
So right there, the Bongino Army, right? That is creating that group dynamic. It's a perfect example of it. That group dynamic.
Confidence, knowing you'll get outstanding.
Also, it has a very nice little touch of a family dynamic as well. There was a really popular move to link certain like religious and Christian values to like a military appeal when it came to the family as well. In other words, you fight this Christian battle and then you fight this thing for family values as well.
Nationwide coverage because they operate on all three major networks. You have a guarantee from Patriot Mobile. Every dollar you spend supports a company, believes in the First and Second Amendments, the sanctity of life. And this show started in February of 2015. I had lost a race for Congress, and it was pretty devastating. We had won on election night. If you go back and look on the election day, if you go to Maryland State Board of Elections, here shut down their website today, and you look at that 2014 November election, you'll notice on election day we had won, and then there were votes came in afterwards. I'm just trying to tell you how it went down because you'll understand where this podcast started from. And we want
see the emotional disclosure and personal investment.
Ended up losing when they finally called it. I don't know, 4 or 5 days later. And Paul and I were pretty devastated. And I got to tell you, I didn't know what to do. It took a while, but I'm all about getting up and dusting off and fighting the next fight. And I'd read this article about this thing called a podcast and how Adam Carolla was kicking ass on a podcast. And there was some political content, but not much. And I said to Paula, do we have any money left? And Paula was like, no, but we got this plastic thing called a credit card. I'm like, well, let's use it. I said, I think we should get a microphone and we should start this podcast thing. And I went down in my basement with producer Joe, and we put some moving blankets on the wall and we recorded our first show. And because we knew so little at the time about podcasts, we used a piece of trademark music and it got pulled down immediately. So my first show, it's a true story, does not even exist.
And tell you what, there is a learning curve to this stuff. There really is.
Someone allegedly has it, but I don't.
There's a lot more work that goes on the back end of this stuff that I wish people knew.
We've looked for it forever. Maybe audience archivist Judy has it somewhere. So if you go back, the second show you'll see is actually the first show. I think it's on SoundCloud and Apple. If you'd have to go way back. But we never expected it to really explode as fast as it did. And then the Russia collusion fiasco happened and the show just went stratospheric. And we've moved, I had to write this down, from my basement in Severna Park to Palm City with me and Paula. Paula was the producer. She was the only producer. Then we moved to Stewart. And then we moved to this place now, which is the new studio, which is a converted Burger King, which we have Speak the Truth McGuinn. He brought me a actual Burger King ashtray, which is in the back. And that's how we wound up here. So some thank yous to my wife for sticking with me because, I tell her all the time, you could have married a doctor and not have to deal with any of this stuff, but she didn't. She married someone who, I don't know, folks, I don't know how to say it. Good enough is never good enough for me. And that sounds great in theory, but I got to tell you, it drives people around you sometimes crazy. And I don't know.
Well, whether you agree with him or not, it's a good story. Seems like a good person at heart. I know we definitely don't agree a lot on certain political stuff, but he does seem educated, but he says he doesn't know how to do a lot of certain things. I guarantee you, because I have had some similar education that he has, is that he is aware of many of the different tactics that are used in order to develop interpersonal connections with the viewer. And there is something to it. And I'm glad I got an opportunity to be able to show you some of these things. If you want to do any future research on this, just on your own time, to learn about how influencers employ this in order to drive engagement, why it's done, the certain things that are behind it, I highly recommend going and looking up some information on the 1.5-sided parasocial relationship. It is a somewhat new thought and being more discussed in the public. So just a few things to keep in mind is that community affiliation, why we are drawn to those different things, the reciprocal interaction, why that's employed, the wishful identification, that's setting the example, the emotional engagement between people, famdom, all these different things, and why we are attracted to them. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining today. I just wanted to jump on and have a little fun on this topic and seemed very interesting. So everyone, thank you for joining. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you can join us again. Also, please check us out on Spotify. If we could get some followers on that, it would really help. Things are picking up, and I really appreciate all the support. You can also check us out on Rumble as well. Any follow or subscription really helps. Thank you very much for your time. Have a great Saturday. I know I'm going to try. Take care.